the world right now. I mean, turn on the TV right now, and there will be a big graphic up of Hulk Hogan has died at 71, and everybody's talking about it. There is not a single network, there isn't a single cable channel, there isn't a podcast out there. Everybody is on YouTube and every other platform talking about the impact of Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, who, no matter how you look at it, and love or hate him, because there were certainly people on both sides of that. And I will say this, and I have said it many, many times before: there is not another human being, there is not another professional wrestler that had more impact on the industry than Hulk Hogan. There, hands down. And no matter what argument you may have about his life outside of the ring or whatever, you cannot take that away from him. He changed professional wrestling forever. He took it out of the local gyms and the television station warehouses, their studios, and wherever you could have an event with a few hundred people, and turned it into this phenomenon across the globe, where you were talking hundreds of thousands of people and millions that would enjoy live events at venues across the world, and did so much, not just for the WWE and what it became, but for every single other organization out there, from the territories early on to what we are seeing today with its partnership with Endeavor, and how that just continues to grow. So he deserves an awful lot of credit, and there's no one else. I dare anybody to try and say different, as far as a personality and a guy who stepped into the ring who did more for professional wrestling than Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I think he's one of those figures in American culture, like an Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, these types of people. You don't need to know what they've actually done in the field they're involved with, because you know who they are, because they're bigger than the brand that they were a part of. And Hulk Hogan is one of those people who, if you thought of wrestling, boom, your brain went to Hulk Hogan. If you did a wrestling promo as a friend with just goof around with your friends in the living room, it was a Hulk Hogan promo, even if you didn't know you were doing a Hulk Hogan impression. And so today we're going to celebrate him 100% here on 10 Count Media, because, as I said earlier, he's a Mount Rushmore. He created the pathway we are on today. And again, I will say it probably 1,000 times on this show: if you do not like him outside the ring, that is your opinion. That's up to you. But today we're not talking about that. We're talking about what he did in the ring, and the accomplishments, everything he did, man. Like, it's going to be so hard to fill us all in because of everything he did. But for you personally, there's a story out there about Hulk Hogan and meeting you on one of your first days in the company. Can you share that with us one more time? Because to me, this story is so many different versions of Hulk Hogan. We see a man who's testing you, a man who also is trying to bring you in as a brotherhood. Can you share this story with us?
Yeah, but I think before I get to that, though, Steve, I back up a little bit, because we tend to see our stratosphere superstars as these overnight successes early on, and everybody remembers, if you go back, it's WrestleMania 1 or prior to that, and the wave that started to build on Hulkamania. But if you know a lot about the industry, if you know a lot about professional wrestling, you know that these guys all start with very, very humble beginnings, and getting their boot into the ring is a major accomplishment. And Terry was certainly one of those people who became a wrestling fan early in his teenage life, and admired superstar Billy Graham. That was his inspiration, which obviously there was a lot, if you know about superstar Billy Graham. But a big guy, the Hulkster, and wasn't this super athlete in high school or anything like that, but had the size and loved music initially. Then he goes but he has this dream, and a lot of people may not know that the Briscoe brothers are really the ones responsible for Hulk Hogan ever becoming a professional wrestler. They, had an outfit down in Florida, and they saw him and saw some potential there and started, courting him to get involved and hook him up with, he goes to Hiro Matsuda, the legend lived on for years and years when, back then you showed up to try and get into the business. It was their goal to convince you that's not something you wanted to do. And how bad did you want it if you did want to stick around? And as the legend goes, I said, as he broke his leg, Hulkster goes away to recover for 10 weeks or so, and then shows back up again. So the price that these guys pay early on stays with them the rest of their lives. And the Hulk traveled quite a road before we saw Hulkamania, take off.
Yeah.
In these, he paid the price of going to all these small venues and just working for nothing and never giving up. And of course, he hooks up with Ed Leslie, that Brutus, the Beefcake. They early on team up as they're just partners basically, and Brutus knows nothing about the business, but Hulkster brings him along to become the Boulder Brothers and start getting better and better. And I really wanted to really put that in the forefront because there is a price to get into this business, and it's not just once you're in that door, you got to continue to keep proving yourself over and over and over again. I've told my story about how I ended up working with the WWE, being someone who was absolutely naive to the business, green as you could possibly be, a dream to be an announcer, getting a tremendous opportunity, and everything was in Stamford, and the famed Hamilton, 120 Hamilton was where all the production was taking place, and that's where I was based when I came. I moved up there from New York City, and there was the famed Edit One. There was one edit room that we had. It was at
Can you imagine that now?
Yeah, folks, that's where it all started. And Kevin Dunn was a producer there, and the guys would come in frequently to do promos in the studio there. It was a good sized facility and state of the art at the time. But you look at it now and you're going, wow, that's what it was. And I had started coming in and doing some promos, and the Hulkster came in, and Edit One was a pretty good sized room. And as I said, I was still commuting. I hadn't really gotten a place in Stamford. I would ride the train up and take a cab over to the studios until I got settled. And I would bring a bag with my stuff in it.
Where were you living?
I need a blaze. I was still living in New York, in the city.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it's, it's about an hour train ride up. But I would bring a bag with me, and I had it. There was a couch area, little place over there, and I was waiting to do some stuff, but Terry had come in to do some promos, and he's kind of getting ready to do these, and I'm sitting there just kind of, in awe. I'm just thinking, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And he's like, hey, brother, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. He goes, who are you? I'm Sean Mooney. I'm one of the new announcers. And he just kind of looked at me like, keeps doing his thing. Because he's probably wondering what the heck is going on. Nobody had told him or whatever I was doing. And he looks over at me and says, don't unpack. Because he kind of looked at my bag. He said, don't unpack. And I was like, oh, okay. And what that really was just a message was basically telling me, I don't think you're going to make it, kid. But as I looked back, and I remember being like really like kind of upset about it, that they would, here I just meet the guy. But then I realized it was a test. It was one of those things. And I had already gone to New York City with 3 bags. So it wasn't like I didn't have the medal. But from that moment on, I was like, I'm going to show him that it takes. And so it really inspired me. And then I knew, and like I said, it was a test. And I I
Like your broken
remember,
leg pretty much too, right? Like
yeah, he didn't
yeah.
break my leg or an
Yeah,
arm
he
or
didn't break your
anything.
leg.
He
You're fine.
just gave me a verbal advice here.
Yes.
And so and I did I got to do some stuff with him, interviews, and he would do his business, whatever. He was very professional but it was never a personal comment or anything like that. And that lasted for months. And like I said, I didn't get many opportunities to do stuff, but when I did, I just wanted to make sure I nailed it. And I made sure I did. And uh, I remember, I don't even remember what the, but I remember doing an interview with him. And after it was over, uh, he said, nice job, brother. And he said, I think you might stick around. In so many words. I don't, but, and I just remember I like stood there, I had the microphone. He like walked out and I was just like, uh, I didn't even know what to say, but it was kind of that like, okay, I think you're gonna, I think you got it. And from that point on, we were always very good. Gene was his guy. There was no question about it. There was a magic between those two. And Gene did most of the stuff with him because he was very comfortable with him. But I had many opportunities. But you have to say something about those two. And when Terry went to the WWE, he shortly after Gene was going to be a part of it too, because they had already worked together. Um, and so that the two of them were just great together. And I think that Gene helped Hulkster as much as the Hulkster helped him, because if the way we did things back then, Steve, is that, you were a part of it. You were part of helping to sell. Now it's much different today. I think, not that we weren't mic stands, but at the same time, we had a role in helping put whatever was going on over. And you can watch interview after interview, Hulk and Gene, and it was always just magic, because those two were just in such great sync. And I used to watch it, and I learned a lot by watching them together. So I know I've gone on with that, but there was just so much to it. And at that point, when I got there in '88, now you can imagine the Hulkster was already in the stratosphere. Things
Oh
had
my God,
really
yeah.
taken off. And I always regretted not being around him sooner. And not because, he was corrupted by fame and all, you can go on and on, but I had heard stories about him before he reached that point, and where things really started to take off. And he was much more. He had, he kept an inner circle always. Jimmy Hart can tell you about that, and was very loyal to those people. And but at that point, he was just, he was arriving in limousines at the arenas, and would come in for a match and then be gone, and because he was shooting movies and all these other things that were going on. So I always regretted the fact that I didn't have that opportunity to have known him before it really took off. So, it was always awesome to watch him work. I people can say what they want about how he performed in the ring, and I'll tell you one thing, that he was tremendous in the ring. If you ever can get a hold or a chance to look at some of the performances of when he was in Japan,
Oh,
which
well,
helped out
yeah,
his
yeah.
career tremendously. He would, because they demand it there. You had to be able to work in a ring. You weren't getting away with, this and dropping the leg. It
What do
just
you
didn't
mean?
happen in Japan. So, as far as a guy in front of a microphone, my God, his promos were tremendous, unique, all his own. He stole maybe from other people, from how the way they did things, but he made it his own. That he did, certainly studying people like Superstar Billy Graham, and also Dusty and all those,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he made it his own. And I remember one time talking to him about, where do you come up with this stuff? That because he would come in there, he always had, whatever the thing they were working on, whatever. But he told me if you're listening, I don't talk about wrestling. I always take it up. Riding the Harley down the Pacific Coast Highway, and I'm watching the waves, and and he would tie it back in to the combat he was about to engage in, but it was always taking you on this ride, and certainly one of the best. And I don't remember, ever doing stuff with him where he would lose his train of thought or stop or have to keep doing. He just, could recover just like that, and you never saw. So he was, as far as promos go, and from what I did, he was a master at that as well.
I will never forget him saying that he wanted to put a Harley on his back. He was like, "Yeah, we're running through the desert and the gasoline, and then I put it on my back there, and then I walk through the." And I just remember, like, what? I don't know what's happening here, but like, I can picture what you're describing to me right now about this Harley on his back. But you're so right about everything you just said. I agree with, like, the Mean Gene Hulk Hogan combo. Like, Mean Gene's obviously doing other interviews backstage. So are you.
Yeah.
But when you think of, usually when people do commentary, they're like, oh, Jesse and Vince, Gorilla and Bobby, JR and King. You never really hear the list being made of backstage interviewer with talent. And Hogan and Mean Gene certainly belong in that category, because over the years we've had backstage interviewers, but for a while they were not part of the show. Like you, Lord Alfred Hayes, Mean Gene, Jesse doing backstage interviews was part of the show. So, but with your experience with Hogan, so you're talking about Mean Gene and Hogan being a combo. I know you did a couple of times, but like, do you have any actual like memories off the top of your head about the times you did do backstage interviews with him?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was always, what always amazed me, he was just always ready to go. He would pop in because they had him doing a billion things. And like I said, what was always amazing to me, because, and I've said this before, I didn't want to be the guy that screwed up an interview. I would just, make sure, okay, try and get to Vince and say, okay, because he's coming in here and we got to go. It would be just like that. He would walk in the room and go. It wasn't, okay, what are we doing? How are we doing this? Whatever. He would already have that somewhere in there of what, okay, I've got to do these promos for it. And, I would try, like I said, you try, because I wasn't going to get a chance to, it wasn't like before a match where you could go, okay, then you're going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and you're going to say this. No, it was, Vince would give me kind of an overview of it. And you might just, most of the time you look at it, it was just, Hulkster, you're going to be going against this guy. He says he's going to take you out in the, first minute or whatever it was. And he'd go, well, let me tell you something, brother. And he might go 3 minutes and you would never have to come in. You wouldn't even, unless we had to go in a different direction. And he knew that. Vince would say, and then Sean's going to, take you to this. But that was pretty much how it went. You just, wow. And even with Gene, but, and Gene with his reaction of it. But that's pretty much the way it was. Like I said, it wasn't at that point, during the years that I was there with him, he was just off the charts. And it was always this very, get me in, get me out. I've got 1,000 other things to do. And it was, like I said, I never remember an instant where something went south and we had to go, okay, we're going to do that again. And that's amazing to me, to think of how many interviews I did. And I'm sure with the Hulkster had, it was in the tens or 100, or so that we did over the years at these events. And I don't ever remember an instance where it was, he wasn't ready to go. He wasn't, I'm going to do this. And I think in many cases, he probably didn't even have to think about it. It's just, he knew the subject and he could just go top of mind. So, that's what I vividly remember, is just that you had to be ready to go. I wouldn't leave the room because, he might just come in and it's like, okay, here we go, and you
I go to the bathroom, guys, but
you better have a
Hogan, he says
bottle
down the
back there.
Yeah, he said he was down the street. You can't get up, Mooney. Yeah. Just cross those legs and get ready to say what's next. And then he'll spew out some shit about carrying Harleys down the desert. And then we're cut. We can all go home. It's 2 in the morning.
And he made everybody else better too. Where if he had somebody else with him, he was going to carry it no matter what happened. So if it was Brutus or whoever was in there, somebody who wasn't as strong as Tugboat or, cutting promos, nothing to worry about. Hulk's here.
No. And it's so great to see, because even on Twitter over the years, you've heard some of these wrestlers have beef because they felt held down by Hulk Hogan, or they weren't world champion because of Hulk Hogan, so on and so forth. They're all coming forward. The ones who are alive, obviously, are coming forward on Twitter. Jake the Snake's coming forward saying great things. Ric Flair's coming forward. Everyone's coming forward to say great things about him. And I think one of the things we always talk about on our show, the Golden Era podcast, is sacrifices, because you're constantly on the road. You're killing your body. Now, Hulk Hogan has passed away, an old age. He had a great life, but yet he's dropping
wrestler,
leg drops.
yes. For a wrestler, that's
for a wrestler,
age,
yes.
71.
For dropping leg drops, over and over and over again. And you're bringing it up. Maybe he showed up the last minute in the event. He doesn't be there all day long. He shows up, he wrestles, but he has to drop that leg every single time, twice on Sunday, twice on Saturday. He did this for decades. And then years later, you'd see him barely able to walk, barely able to stand up. He's there. And I think that gets forgotten about, because well, yeah, but he was a star. He made millions of dollars. He was famous. That's great. Yeah, but that was great for the period of time when he was that big. At some point, this man is in his house by himself in his bed trying to get out, and he can't do it because he dropped a leg drop every night for you. And I think that gets forgotten about a lot, about people. We get mad at people who are more are wealthier than us and have everything, because we're upset that they have it and we don't. I think one thing Hulk Hogan does not get any credit for is the sacrifices that he made physically to his body.
Yeah, well, you have to remember, and we've talked about this before, that it is a deal with the devil. You're going to live the greatest life, the adoration of millions, the money, all the fame that goes with it. And as we've said, there's nobody bigger who capitalized on that than Hulk.
No one.
But as with all of these guys, there is a devastating price to pay, and they all pay it. It just depends on when it happens. But and I don't mean just dying. I mean that it ultimately wins. And that's you talk about the sacrifice, and people, it always enraged me when I was younger. And of course, that whole, fake thing. And this is early on, because, it's certainly different now, that it's sports entertainment. We all know that, but we used to really annoy me, and, the fact, because I saw what these guys went through. And sure, it may have been, choreographed, and I always likened them to being professional stuntmen. Well, professional stuntmen get the crap beat out of them too. But these guys did what they did every single night. And those were not fake cement floors. They were not, fake steel ring posts. Go to a ring, a truly professional ring, and stand there in the middle of it, and then kick your legs out from under you and land completely flat on your back. Tell me how that feels. Okay. It's padded. It's got springs under there, but it's jarring to your body, and it your insides are not necessarily greatly attached, shall we say. They move around, and the pounding that you take, let alone limbs and other bodies coming at you, it just takes a major toll. I likened it to getting in a car accident every night. That you're not just a fender bender. You're talking a collision, and and you're doing it night after night. Now, especially like with the Hulkster, we mentioned the leg drop. Well, it's the constant movement of that finishing move.
Yeah, over and over.
Constantly, where you're upwards near 300 pounds, and you're on that part of your body over and over and over again, and not necessarily always in the ring. He did it outside of the ring too. And we've, people that were wrestled in high school, how thick those mats are, the ones that they put around the ring. Well, underneath that is cement. It doesn't go anywhere. There's not a lot of give. And as things progressed too, they didn't even have the mats out there. They had like a rubber floor. Well, it's unforgiving. And these guys take this beating every single night, all these years. And back then, you were working, as you said at the top here, of 7 days a week, some stretches, more for maybe 2-3 weeks at times, twice on a weekend, over the weekend, twice on Saturday and Sunday, and you're doing that. It's amazing that guys that there have been some that live into their 80s and 90s is incredible, because your body just can't take it. And Terry had, I don't know how many, a countless number of them. And it seems that this last one, I think it had something to do with his neck and his spine, that he just didn't really recover from. And we don't know the details at this point, but it really was, and everyone is shocked today. Hearing that news this morning, I just was a punch in the gut. But are we really surprised? I mean, I was always amazed that how great a shape that Hulk Hogan looked in, even to this day. I would have thought that he would have been with a cane and still looked good, still had the guns worked out, did the best he could to take care of his body. I really was amazed. And you see him, it wasn't, he's made appearance. It wasn't that long ago that when he was, pushing the new league that he had started with Eric Bischoff, and still doing the promos and, looked for the most part great. So, this last time though, his body finally won, as they say. You can only push it so far. That car only goes, you only got so many miles on it. And when you beat the shit out of that car for decades, at some point it's going to stop running. And it really is. It's a sad day that we've got somebody who changed an industry forever. And I think the biggest testament of it is just the reaction from the world. It's not just the wrestling industry. It is not, it's not just the entertainment world. It is everybody. And the fact that kids that are, 10, 12 years old know who he is tells you something.
It 100% does. And I think that's what the credit he deserves. I hope we're going to be able to do that on this show, because everyone is arguing online about every single aspect of his career. Why was he number one? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And for me personally, I saw a tweet. It really spoke to me. It was like, if you're over the age of 30, Hulk Hogan was your childhood. Hulk Hogan was your Saturday morning cartoons feeling of, this is safe. Take your vitamins, say your prayers. I'm the good guy defeats the bad guys, and you're in your pajamas, eating your cereal, watching it happen. Like, that is what brings people together today. And then there's the other half of people who are just here to complain because the internet exists. But I'm just happy to see the comments of people being like, man, when I was 5, me and my brother, I was pretending I was the Ultimate Warrior and he was Hulk Hogan, or I was Macho Man and he was Hogan. Like, hearing those stories really bring it up, because in any industry, there's always going to be someone who's like the top of their game. And it's great to see that CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS are all talking about Hulk Hogan passing away. And I'm not disparaging any wrestler that came after him, but the rest who pass away later on will be called WWE superstar and then say their name. This is Hulk Hogan passed away. This guy,
Enough
him.
said. Yeah.
And with his legacy, though, the guy technically main evented 9 WrestleManias. We'll say 8, the real number, but 9. The first 8, he is scheduled to be in a match in the main event of WrestleMania. The first 8. That to me is one of those things of, like we talked about before, like if WrestleMania 1 isn't a success, well, everything goes belly up. 3 was such a success that everything goes up, skyrocketing. It changed the industry forever. Even today, we're feeling it from WrestleMania 3, all connected to Hulk Hogan. And for you, you coming in, you didn't really know much. You learned everything. You still know everything about professional wrestling. How important do you think it is to the brand of WrestleMania because we have Hulkamania and Hulk Hogan connected forever.
Well, Steve, think of Andre the Giant, absolutely bigger than life for a number of reasons, and what he did for the world of professional wrestling. But Andre could never have done what Hulk Hogan did for professional wrestling, and the combination of them, though, and that body slam heard around the world, really is a great, to me, that's a great phrase about all of this, because as we've talked about before, with champions or certain wrestling personalities, gigantic megastars, you've got to have somebody else that can stand next to them in order to. It's true in any sport, boxing, and that we've seen the two of them together, and what happened there, I think, really was what launched everything as far as globally. That you had, the eighth wonder of the world, and then Hulk Hogan, who's bigger than anything, and then Andre, thank God, agrees to be body slammed.
Well, yeah,
But
I would hope
from that
so.
point, it was what else? What else can't this guy do? And you mentioned kids who look back, as you said, if you're over 30,
Certain age, yeah.
That what that meant to you as a kid. And I think that when you kind of break it down, we all had our heroes growing up with, but let's say they were comic book heroes or a movie character hero. Hulk Hogan was real life. You could go see him, and he lived up to it. He was this massive, blonde, tanned, muscled individual, and as you said, the four commandments, say your prayers, take your vitamins, believe in yourself, all that together. And
because we're in the cross too, as well.
Yeah, it was that superhero come to life. And not that there weren't other personalities at the time, but nothing compared to Hulk Hogan. He captured the hearts of everybody in those early years, and that mystique and everything that went with it just kept building. But to see, and I remember being in those arenas. Of course, it was all very family friendly. That was Vince's goal at the time with bringing people in. That if you got, it's better than having two guys that are wrestling fans. Or how about bring the whole family?
Yeah.
And there was something there for everybody. And the way kids would look at Hulk Hogan when he came into that arena, and the noise. I've talked about this before, where I remember being in an arena, and for the first time really in my life, and I had worked with professional sports for a long time and had been in stadiums, World Series stadiums, and been at NFL games, and I remember being in there, and when Hulk came out and physically feeling the noise go through my chest, like feel it in your body, and going, holy, what in the world? Chills, and how these people would look at him as he came in and just wishing they could touch him and say, that is a phenomenon I don't know which has ever been matched, because it was so unique. It was so new as far as how it took the world by storm, and Hulkamania really did impact everybody. I remember living in New York City, and I said I was not a huge wrestling fan, but I knew what rock and wrestling was. I knew who Hulk Hogan was, and and it wouldn't have happened without him. Vince found the guy. It was that genie in the bottle, and knew it. His dad didn't realize it, but Vince McMahon Jr. sure did.
Thunder Lips.
Yeah,
I think he saw Thunder
got
Lips.
fired for that. I mean,
I know.
What?
How insane that is to think that you have a golden goose and you almost let the golden goose loose to someone else, and he came back home, and then the rest is history. But even like when wrestling, because people are like, oh well, Hogan didn't wrestle, he punched, kicked, he that doesn't matter. He told the story every
Didn't matter.
time. Cup in the ring, he'd Hulk up, he'd point at you, he'd punch you 3 times, he'd bounce you off
Don't
the
forget
rope.
the
It was yeah, of course. It was
yeah.
repetition. And I think people love that. People complain about it all day long, but they like the idea of waking up, putting on your clothes, going to work, eating lunch at the same time. They like that feeling of, and of course, with wrestling, you're escaping the real world. You're trying to see your superhero live in front of you, as you brought up. You can't go meet Spider-Man. You can go meet and pay to see Hulk Hogan beat
Yeah.
up some bad guy. Even now, it's even crazier where it's like, go to the store, they'll have them there. You can go meet your heroes. And to me, meeting your heroes got to be incredible. And I met Hulk Hogan years ago. He didn't look too happy about being there, and that's fine. So it wasn't like this grand experience, but it was still, wow, like there he is in the flesh. And merchandise in today's world, everyone has merchandise. Now, give me 1 second. I just have 3 items sitting over here. And I'll tell you what, this stuff right here, they have remaking in today's world because of Hulk Hogan's success as merchandise. So give me 2 seconds.
So yeah, okay, folks. So what we're going to do here is we're going to relive some of Steve Fall's childhood, because keep in mind he was one of those kids at the rail, trying to just look at this. Oh my God, a wrestling buddy.
We got a wrestling wrestling buddy, folks. Still got one.
That's a collector's item.
Forever, 1992, probably. Okay, we have a wrestling buddy.
They make your kids away from that. They probably want to.
No, they've never seen this. They won't see this. Any championship belt they have seen that has been in a package, it has been ripped out of the package. So everything else has to be hidden.
Not getting that one.
So wrestling buddies, they remade these a few years ago. Now you can buy Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, because success. All right. Also, hey kids, let's go to lunch at school today. What should we bring? Should we bring our
the most
Hulk
popular kid? You must have been very popular with that one.
And then, oh God, I don't even know how to open it. Oh my God.
Probably the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is still in there.
The thermos is still inside.
Oh my God, yes. Dude, that's awesome. What a collector's item.
So we have that. Put that back in. I'll put my lunch in there when I work from my house later today. And again, LJN. This is the first WWF action figures
great
that
shape.
the WWF ever made. The paint's all there too. Look at that. Boop.
Yeah.
Boop.
Dude.
Yep. So I just want to say that in today's world, you can buy anything from anyone, a teddy bear to socks to underwear to a tank top. Hulk Hogan, for me personally, at least the WWF eyes, was, okay, we have a star. Let's put merchandise on him. And before that, obviously, wrestlers were selling T-shirts here and there. But you're talking about being there during the golden era of the WWF, the golden era of Hulk Hogan. Yeah. How many damn yellow T-shirts and fingers did you see in the audience while you were there? Because
oh my God, the foam fingers. And that's a great point, Steve, that Hulk Hogan deserves credit for too, is really launching merchandise in the industry. Not that other people weren't doing it, but not like on that scale. We had, the WWF magazine that was basically just a promotional tool to get people to buy stuff. And I remember, and I love that there's one of the magazines out there that I am in it with wearing one of the hats. I was very proud of that.
Oh, I have every magazine, so don't make me go search through them.
Yeah, you got to find those. but and you can find a lot of the people that were in there. Alfred, and they would have us just go. Steve Taylor would need somebody to model something, and can you come down, because he had his little photo studio down at the studio. We'd go to, all right, but getting back to that, I mean, the merchandise was insane. I would love to see some of the numbers, but they had everything. It was besides the T-shirts and the foam fingers and all kinds of
teddy bears. You had bandanas. You had shirts, ripped
pencil
shirts,
sets, mugs. I remember they had
stickers.
It was a sponge hand flexor thing that had WWF on it.
He had his work here too.
Yeah, but I imagine it was a huge part of the business. They were making a ton of money, and as we've discussed, that at that point in time, the boys weren't getting any of that action. Mm-hmm. And Hulk Hogan was certainly one of those who was, I'm going to do this. I want part of it. I want a piece of it. And then, of course, as we've also and talked about, is Jesse and what he did. Now that's another story, but but those guys, and Hulk was a big part of it, just because that his merchandise was so much in demand, and that he could he could tell Vince McMahon, we can do this. It's great, but I want some of it, because they're the reason. I'm the reason they're buying it. So he led the way on that. I'm not saying he fought for the boys so they got their piece of that pie, but if it wasn't for him, that stuff wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have the deals that they have had gotten back then, and it was all because of him. That, I mean, he's the one that's what the merchandise everybody wanted, and then everybody else started getting their stuff, and then you had Hasbro coming in with the action figures and the rings and all the other stuff, the toys. It turned into a gigantic source of income for the company.
Hulk Hogan had a cartoon.
Yeah,
the Rock
cartoon.
All the movies he did. Like,
yeah.
And I think recently, so me and you did a SummerSlam 1989 podcast. We talked about like Zeus and No Holds Barred for like a half an hour on that show, go check it out if you want to. But the thing about that is the comments from people who were kids then, their comments are, I loved No Holds Barred. I loved it because it was Hulk Hogan. It didn't matter if it was technically a bad movie through Rotten Tomatoes or things of that nature. These children were saying, my superhero, he's going to be in movies now?
Yeah.
I'm going. And so they loved it. And I think that's another thing too, is we've seen Vince McMahon over the years. He tried over and over to make a movie industry out of his characters. He wanted these wrestlers to be bigger than life. And we'd always hear stories about he's here to tell stories. He's put smiles on faces. And if you're going to try to tell me that Hulk Hogan didn't put smiles on faces when he came out and was just look at the crowd with his beard and grab his chin and, cup his ear. And again, that's what I like seeing on the comments on Twitter, because it's, for me, I always said, this is personally for me, when Jim Carrey or Adam Sandler dies, for me, is when my childhood takes a big old hit in the stomach. Yeah. And Hulk Hogan dying is one of those moments where you're like, God damn, man, like Michael Jordan in the NBA, like you are the biggest star of this business. The Rock did great. Of course, The Rock, John Cena, we have those people. But Hulk Hogan is the founding father of the way we look at wrestling today. And if you try to deny that, like you're just full of hate, it feels like, because everyone I've talked to over the years, the Mountie, the Warlord, Jake the Snake, no one denies that when he was on the card, they made more money that night. No one denies that. And I think that's one of the biggest things is people argue like, well, he held this person down. He did that. How do you think you stay number one? Sometimes you can't be playing nice. You have to play the game. And Hulk Hogan, I feel like, is one of those guys where it's like, well, he gets hated more than love. But in reality, how do you think he stayed your hero? He had to do what he had to do to keep going. And before I don't want to talk about that anymore, but the WrestleMania first 8, technically 9, the storylines, the mega powers exploding, fighting Warrior, dividing an audience, defeating an Iraqi sympathizer, Sergeant Slaughter, all these things, body slamming Andre, 3 WrestleManias in different locations. The first WrestleMania with Cyndi Lauper. Like, the wrestling history is, I don't know, it has to give credit to Hulk Hogan because of the way, everything I just rattled off. Those are amazing storylines. They're not best matches. They're amazing year-long storylines with Macho Man, Mega Powers exploding. So, but for you, people have Mount Rushmores. Hulk Hogan must be on your Mount Rushmore.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. I think if they had a Rushmore that had one face on it, you'd have to put Hulk Hogan on there. Yes. I'm sorry. I remember, and I've mentioned this before, that years back, the Hulkster was not in great favor, I think, at the time with the WWE, and they had done a 50 most this is when they were doing those number shows, this 50 most whatevers, and it was most influential wrestling personalities or something like that, and they had Hulk Hogan at 20 something. And I remember just watching that thing and going, are they out of their minds? I mean, what? Are you kidding me? Like, if you don't have him top 5, then you're just,
you're petty.
That's fake news.
I
mean, seriously, like, how can you deny it? You can't. And as we said, think. But as you've just said, there are so many people today. You look at the comments of all of this, and anybody that was a part of that, And of course, we know that a big part of what professional wrestling is all about is that you go for the ride. It's suspended animation in a sense that you go, I want to be on a ride. I want it. And that's what it was for all these young people and older people too. Let's not deny it. That they were, adults that they felt the same way about it when they saw the Hulkster, and you talk about all these storylines, WrestleManias, and all what Hulk did. Always the baby face. He proved later that he could be a heel and be a damn good one.
Oh
But
yeah.
all of those, and what is he doing? He's saving people. He's coming to the rescue. He is it's the oldest story in time of good conquers evil. That's what it always came down to. And whether or not he was saving Miss Elizabeth, or if he was, taking out the $1 million man, or Andre the Giant, or whatever it was, he was always prevailing for good.
Mm-hmm.
And what's not to love about that? That's and he rode that wave for a long time. And even when they tried to say, yeah, maybe Hulkamania has run its course, what did they do? How many times they have to go back to the Hulkster
Always
and say,
always.
dude, we need you. Can you? And so it just shows that it worked. It was he pulled it off, and that's what I think a lot of people are remembering today. It takes them back to them and how magical that was. It was this place to go, and no matter what was going on in your life, you could go there and you could proudly say you were a Hulkamaniac and put your shirt on, and then how many moms had their kids rip their shirts? I can't believe you just did that. Yeah, I know you did it, Steve.
It was an Aeropostale.
Yeah.
No.
But and that's right.
I never did such a thing.
No, you wouldn't. Of course not. So that's what I hope people remember today. There's going to be discussions as we get further away from this with everything else. But as I mentioned, that the Hulkster had a circle. There are people in his life that, and this is true, I think, for a lot of people that are just, undescribably famous and tugged at and criticized and everything else, that he had a group of people that he was very loyal to, and they were very loyal to him his whole life. And that certainly included, Gene Okerlund. They were friends for life. I know they, when Gene was alive, they had dinner quite often in Florida. They were, Jimmy Hart, of course. Jimmy sold till the end. For I think there was a tweet that he said, "Yeah, we're doing karaoke. He's great, and God, I mean, may we all have a friend like Jimmy Hart, because no question he loves the Hulkster, and he did a lot for people. Ted DiBiase tells a story about when he first was with the WWF in New York, and was the Hulk's first match, and put him over big time. And Ted tells the story how a senior told him, I got this guy I want you to put him over. And said, well, how do you want me to do it? And he said, I know you'll do it right. And it was, a great match. And Terry was, the victor of course. But it went so well that he thanked Ted, and he said, I will never forget this. I will never forget it. And Ted tells the story when he came up to the WWF, Terry took care of him. And a lot of things, not that Ted wouldn't have been successful. I'm not saying that at all, but it certainly helped to have a friend by the name of Hulk Hogan. And I know that that Ted never forgot that either. And look at the success Ted had. And maybe early on, he may not have found it if it wasn't somebody who was looking out for him, who had influence, big time influence in the company back then. And so there will be people say things, and he was certainly a flawed human being. Who isn't?
Right.
But he also took care of a lot of people too over the years.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on Twitter, you have Ric Flair, Triple H, Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Matt Cardona, Conrad Thompson, Sting, Bruce Beefcake, The Miz, uh, Sergeant Slaughter, TNA Wrestling, NWA, WWE's account, everybody, Matt Hardy, everybody is tweeting about memories of Hulk Hogan and the things that got them into business. And I think that's the craziest things too, is like when you think of, like I don't know why, but I'm way too young for Evil Knievel. But every time you hit a certain demographic, there's always your hero. Who was your hero when you were growing up? And Hulk Hogan, for people who got into wrestling, obviously,
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was their hero. Even that show, The Goldbergs, was celebrating the 80s, and they always would bring up wrestling because of the boom. Even Barstool Sports. Like this is not a wrestling death. This is a worldwide unfortunate day for wrestling and for everyone who looked at him as one of those pop culture phenomenons. Because I said, like, you didn't have to know what he did to know who he was. You could see a picture of him without a name. Who is this, Hulk Hogan?
Yeah.
Have you ever watched wrestling before? Nope, but I know who Hulk Hogan is. My wife has no idea about anything about wrestling. But when I bring up, I have to go. I'm very busy. She's like, well, you have to do. I'm like, Hulk Hogan died. And she's like, oh,
things aside. Yeah.
She's like, I'm so sorry. It's like she backed away slowly, realizing I had shit to do today because, as a 30-year-old, 30 years on being a wrestling fan, I want to sit here and celebrate the man that we have created so many podcasts about already. We talked about him versus Warrior and him versus Savage and him versus Sergeant Slaughter and why him and Ric Flair didn't have a WrestleMania 8 match. But what's funny is like these little things we talk about for an hour on a podcast, which you should check out, but also on those, we really take one little sentence and spread it. And when you see today's world, that WrestleMania 8 match that some people are still harping on, angry, really angry, Ric Flair sitting here saying, I'm absolutely shocked to hear about the passing of my close friend Hulk Hogan. Like, who cares what happened in 92? This man has passed away. And I think that's the biggest thing is no matter what you thought, no matter what you feel, you shouldn't hold on to hate. And I think that's one of the biggest things I hope that people can get through today is, hey, he did some terrible things in the real world. I get it. Terry Bollea might have done terrible things, but the on-air character that we all loved and adored, Hulk Hogan, did not do those things. So I'm going to sit here continuously celebrating that character for the things he did. Because think about it. First, WrestleMania, main event. First SummerSlam, main event. First Survivor Series, main event. And he continuously main events all those pay-per-views all on his shoulders. Like, personally for you, do you ever have a conversation with other wrestlers about this? Being like, man, that's a lot of pressure for one guy. I know it was a bunch of us here. We're all doing this job, but like, he's kind of pulling that wagon.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that if it really comes down, they dial down that conversation, they're going to admit that none of this happens without Hulk Hogan. Yeah. None of them reached the heights that they were able to do without Hulk Hogan. I remember specifically, guys, when we go to shows or house shows and I go and the guys knew Terry was on the card and it was like, thank God, because they knew, because back then, as we've talked about, that's how you made your money. It was part of the gate. It was who showed up at the house. It wasn't, you didn't have the guaranteed contract that you just show up and no matter who was there or how many were filling the seats up, you were going to get paid. No. So when you had big names that in a decent match involving them, you knew this was going to be a good night. And one thing I want to mention too is a personal story that really just kind of came back to put the entire business in perspective for me because of Hulk Hogan. And we used to go up to the Boston Garden every month. We did shows in New York at Madison Square Garden. And we also did shows at the Boston Garden. And one of the first times I went up there that Hulk was on the card, and Killer Kowalski used to come. He had a wrestling school, and he would come in and see how they would come in and do the lower card stuff. But we would all be in the locker room, and I remember that Killer Kowalski was in there, and he was kind of the first one by the door. And Hulk came in, and he went over and he had a pretty long conversation with Killer Kowalski. Total respect. telling him, that how much he admired him, and just on and on. But besides that, they're sitting around, and there was probably 8 or so as part of the babyface locker room. But Hulk went around and shook every single hand. And you've probably heard about this before, but this is where I never really witnessed it before, where he went around everybody and thanks for being here, brother. Thanks, and then there's guys. And it made me just realize what this business was all about. It really is a brotherhood, sisterhood that when you're in for life. And the handshake, then they would say it was like butter. You wouldn't squeeze together. It was because that meant you worked, you worked easy.
Mm-hmm.
And would go around and shake everybody's hand and thank them for being there. And it just kind of brought it all together for me that, they're all on their own. They're just trying to work a night and get paid. But then again, they're all in this together, and nobody else is going to be allowed in unless you pay the price. And that night, I just looked at him, and I had tremendous admiration for him because he was that famous then, that he took the time to do that. Now, whether or not it was at any other means, whatever, but to me, it was pure. It was respect for the business, and I will to his dying day, I know 2 things: that Terry Bollea loved professional wrestling, was passionate about it throughout his entire life, and respected whether his thoughts on other people, whatever, but respected everybody that had paid that price to be a part of it. And that's my take. And the fact that he changed it forever. It would never ever be the same again. And we see what's happened to this day, and it just keeps going. Wouldn't have happened without him.
I don't know. That's great to hear too, because there's, as long as I can remember, in dirt sheets you'd read like it was clearly swayed to you to read this to not like Hulk Hogan, and then but you're trying to love him as a good guy on television, and eventually, he leaves the WWF, and it's sad because a lot of people, that was their childhood. It was like poof, it was gone. Mm-hmm. And he goes to like the rival WCW, and I remember being so angry, like, how could you do this? How could you do this? And then a few years later, he does something that changes the wrestling world again. He turns into a bad guy and creates this NWO with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and just changes the business once again in 1996. And to me, that's one of those moments where, like, recently John Cena turned heel, everyone tried to be like, it's the greatest heel turn of all time. Did it change business? Did it change? Yeah. Did it skyrocket business? Or did it just make everything keep going straight the way it is? And that's fine. And that's what happened. Hulk Hogan turning evil made WCW and WWF realize, oh shit, we gotta level up our game. Suddenly we're having 8.9 million people watching us on Monday nights on both channels, pay-per-view, buy rights, going through the sky, because of Hulk Hogan turning evil. That had to require Steve Austin to change up his game, The Rock to change up his game, Triple H. So in reality, like, him turning heel, that could have been the end of the WWF and WCW.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, he changed the business again. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out thought that he can't turn heel. People aren't going to buy it. It's just not going to, they didn't think he could do it. And whether it was an act of survival to become relevant again, or however you want to look at it, it was brilliant that he was able to, step up for that. Still be as good as he ever was. I don't think anybody can deny that what he did there, as far as it's still did the same stuff in the ring, but promos and being a heel, and the whole kind of hobo Hogan is, that I always thought that look.
That's what you called him?
Yeah,
I love it.
Because he
Hogan
was able to do it and reinvent himself
And Mean Gene was
which
by
I
his
think,
side for all these interviews
yes,
too.
which I think is, yeah, and Gene was right there too. So, but he reinvented himself, and at the same time, changed the industry again.
Again.
And like you said, it was this boomerang effect or whatever it was that that the waves went, and WWE was like, oh shit, we got to do something here. And not like they tried everything, but at this point it was all right, you know, bring in the anchor. We got to sail again. We got to, we can't keep doing what we're doing. We just have to just, go for it. I think that's when people like, The Rock and Steve Austin said, F it, I'm not going to remain in this business if I don't do things differently. And maybe they looked at Hulk Hogan and said, look what he just did. What am I doing? I'm following what these guys are telling me, and it ain't working.
No.
So yeah, so he deserves a lot of credit for that too, reinventing himself. And as I said, it may have been an act of survival or whatever it was, but damn it, he did it. He didn't shy away from it. Didn't say that he could sit there and rest as the Hulkamaniac for the rest of the Hulk Hogan the rest of his life and ride that ass. No, he became this shit heel, and it was and it worked.
It did work. And two shirts that are still purchased in today's wrestling, Austin 316 and NWO.
Yeah.
And that NWO shirt, I know he didn't sit down with a pen and create it himself, but without him wearing it and being such a dominant heel and creating the business for a few more years after that, well, then people wouldn't be buying it. Why are we buying it? Because nostalgia, my friends. And we have nostalgia for NWO and Hulk Hogan. And again, I didn't personally work with him. Like for you, we have talked about before. You're from an era that not a lot of people exist in this club anymore. The golden era. The numbers are dwindling every single year. And Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair were the ones I was like, wow, like they're gonna go forever. And then Hulk Hogan passes away. To me, I was like, what? How is this possible? But we all have Father Time is the number one heel in this business. But for you personally, what's it like realizing that now Hulk Hogan, this man who was the face of the time of the WWF that you were involved with, he's no longer here, and we're gonna have to figure out what's next for his legacy. But for you, how does it make you feel?
Well, you mentioned about how there are millions of people across the world now, young people, and you said even yourself, it was kind of a shot between the eyes there, as far as when you heard it today, and and I've said it before. Hulk and I were not friends. We weren't close during my period there. I'm not going to try and tell people that it was different, but I worked with him a lot. I think I had a very good relationship with him. We had many conversations over the years that I was there. And this morning, I was out in my kitchen when I saw this. You sent me a text, and because we're earlier out here, and my son did too, and I just looked at it and I said, Hulk is dead, and I have to tell you, and it's probably because it took me back, and I remember those days when I was young and I was struggling to develop a career, and he inspired me to try and be better. That if you want to exist in this world with us, you better keep up. And it was a real wave of sadness. It did. It hit me, and I think not so much because of my relationship with him, but the time it represented in my life, and to have been a part of that, and then you realize it's gone. With him gone, it'll always exist. But as long as the Hulkster was out there, and I always was looking forward to the chance of seeing him again. We never crossed paths. He didn't do a lot of shows, and I never chance to see him later in life here. But I always look forward to that opportunity. and to talk to him and to mention that about don't unpack your bags. So yeah, it's in that way. It hit me, and with a great sadness, and I'm feeling that today. And I think that people kind of are feeling that maybe they never even saw him close up, but I'll guarantee you they felt like he was part of them, part of their lives, and that they did have this relationship with him because he impacted their lives. He made them happy, brought them this joy. Maybe they had awful childhoods, and you know, being able to have that piece of merchandise or whatever, and seeing and following what's Hulk doing, you know, it's a part of their lives that they remember fondly. And I certainly remember that part of my life. And I mean, how blessed was I that I got to be there to see it while it was happening. I was a part of it, you know? So, that's the way I'm feeling today. And I just feel like, you know, a part of it, it's gone. His legacy is going to live on forever. But I think we always imagine seeing the Hulkster, you know, on a stage, and let me tell you something, brother, and ripping that shirt off and having the big gold cross. You know, it's over, and I think that that's the way a lot of people are feeling today. And I hope at least today you remember what he brought to this world, and a lot of good, and people that are connected to the world of professional wrestling really today, give him a prayer of thanks, and, you know, rest easy, brother.
Of course, and he is trending worldwide.
Yeah.
Worldwide right now. He's number one, and then Terry Bollea is also trending. Andre's trending. Real American, Macho Man is trending. Wrestling's trending. It's Randy Savage. He's cut, and not just him. Like the people who he worked with are all trending as well, and that really shows you the legacy of Hulk Hogan. And you know, I hope today we were able to bring back some childhood memories. Let me grab mine for 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah.
I hope. Sorry, little brother. It's okay, brother. Sorry.
All right. Give him a hug.
Sorry, dude, I've almost pulled a Rocco there. Rocco. No, but honestly, like I think the legacy of Hulk Hogan, this is what it is. This reminds me of my childhood. And so today I hope we brought back a little bit of yours on our quest through the journey of Hulk Hogan in an hour long, sharing your memories, sharing our memories, sharing everyone's memories, because you know, whatever you feel, that's you. You can feel however you want to feel. But on our show, how we feel, Hulk Hogan, brother, you know, we're going to miss you. Thank you for the memories. And I'm going to go tell Alexa to play Real American really loud as I day drink and have a good time. All right. So, Sean Mooney, anything else?
Just that, you know, thank you, Hulkster. A hell of a ride, and rest in peace.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, thank you so much for being here on Tank Out Media, talking about Hulk Hogan's legacy. I've been Steve Fall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Remember, body slam your wife or your husband, and have a good time. Drop the leg. Have a good one. Bye.